Hey, it's Janette here from Janette's TV. I'm at the Elevate Tech Conference in Toronto. And what a conference this is. 4 days of incredible learning, all kinds of very high influencers in the digital and tech industries, from fashion to food and everything in between. Investments, health. We have so much great coverage coming at you. Please stay with us.
I'd like to welcome to the stage Mark Zakulin, who is the CEO of Canopy Growth Corporation. Everybody, give him a round of applause. And someone who barely needs an introduction, but I'll give one to her anyway, Martha Stewart, everyone. Well, this is really exciting. I'm a little nervous. Maybe could have used an edible, I don't know. Anyway. So Mark, for those of you who don't know, is leading Canada's global leader in this industry in cannabis, and Martha Stewart is the founder of the multi-channel lifestyle corporation, Martha Stewart Living, an entrepreneur. You've had 95 best-selling books, and you are
still working on them.
Still 95.
Yeah, 96 coming.
Maybe one a cannabis cookbook. Who knows? Everyone. We'll ask her in a second. All right, let's get started because there's a lot of questions that I have. First of all, Martha, this is for you. I mean, you're known as the queen of the home. Your name is used as a descriptor. We call my aunt Martha Stewart because she puts on a killer Thanksgiving. Why did you choose cannabis?
To start working on it because it's new and it's different. It's not really new. It's been around a very long time, but but I thought that since it's an emerging and exciting market, I thought it would be interesting to learn all about it. And I was asked by Snoop Dogg, my TV partner, if I would be interested in talking to the Canopy Corporation here in Canada. And I thought, yes, this would be interesting. Maybe we could, develop a product or two. And I came up and met with Canopy, loved what they're doing. And I'm not working in the cannabis area, I'm working in the CBD area. So that's what we're developing, different things for the home, for food, and for pets at present. I'm also interested in skincare and other things like that, but that's why I'm sitting here with my nice partner here, Mark. It's very nice to be here in Canada again, working on a new project.
So speaking of partnerships, I mean, I'd love to know more about your partnership with Snoop, because that is kind of, I guess we can all agree, an unlikely pairing when you first look at it. But let's talk about
it's unlikely even if you're, just think about it.
If you're in it, yeah. But let's talk about this pairing. And Mark, I mean, how we talked a little bit about how this came about, but I'm sure there's budding entrepreneurs, pun very much intended, that are looking at possible partnerships with people who are high profile, because we can't advertise, right? We can't advertise.
Correct,
marijuana
it's limited, yes.
Currently. So how did this come about with you, and how is this working?
Yeah, so there's a whole lot of, right opportunity at the right time, right? In Canada, we were blessed that 6 years ago, the government had the foresight to set up a federal regulated system for medical cannabis, and then we were blessed that our leaders had the vision to introduce a recreational system on top of it, and Canopy was one of the early companies in that system. And through a series of going public and buying an old chocolate factory, we ultimately built a great company. And as part of that, as mentioned, we formed a relationship with Snoop Dogg, whose association to cannabis needs no introduction. And through that, then we were equally blessed to be introduced with Martha, and her credibility, everything she's accomplished. As we start to look at CBD products, we couldn't think of a better advisor to be working with.
That's great. Let's talk about the Snoop Dogg relationship. You are an unlikely duo, as you said, but you created this fruitful partnership. What are some of the lessons that you've learned in that, and are there any myths around that you want to dispel?
Well, it's just, he and I were out in California doing the Justin Bieber roast. And you all, I hope you've all watched that fantastic roast. We sat next to each other for 4 hours, and we got to talking, and because you're rehearsing and constantly making jokes and doing those nasty roasts. Oh, so awful. But we were discovered by some agents at CAA who had the great idea of putting us together on a friendly family talk show, basically a cooking show with friends. And it's worked out very nicely. We're in our 3rd season. We enjoy doing it very much. I get to meet all the rappers and many people I would never get to meet otherwise. And he gets to learn how to cook a little bit more. He's not a bad cook, by the way, but he does smoke a lot. And he is always high. And most of our guests actually pass through his trailer. He has a very large, fancy, black trailer, and they pass by through the trailer, and they're always in such a good mood when they come out. And I have never gone in his trailer, and I never will, because I don't really partake of the smoking type of cannabis.
Do you partake in the eating?
Well, I've tasted gummies and things, and that's why I'm working with cannabis, Canopy, because I think there is a way to make food a good sort of background for CBD.
What was the experience like, tasting it, eating it?
Well, we all got a little silly. And, I had a big weekend party up in Maine. And in Maine, it's legal, and you can grow 8 plants. Every adult can grow 8 plants in the garden. I haven't seen any in my garden up there yet, but I'm sure it's somewhere on the property. But we were all eating gummy bears before dinner, and everybody's appetite sort of waned, and it seemed to have a very good effect.
And did you, I guess, have you done it with brownies? Have you infused them? Because I can't even imagine Martha Stewart brownies.
We want to make some really good food product, and there will be a time for that product, and we are doing a lot of research along with the scientists at Canopy, who are extremely reliable and extremely experienced chemists, and I think we're going to come up with some great product that will be safe and efficacious and useful.
Mark, can we turn the conversation just for a little while over to technology? How have you found that technology has helped with the growth of your business?
Yeah, it's, again, back to that advantage we had in Canada where we were able to, raise money and fund a business because we do grow great weed and that's part of it, but there's a lot more to it, right? There's an entire technology piece. When we're picking our genetics, there's an element of, looking and smelling and tasting, but there's an element of looking at the genetic profile and mapping out early if it will have good THC or a good smell profile or anything like that. And that maps all the way to the technology that goes into a vape pen and the Bluetooth-enabled app that connects to it. So I think it's that full piece. And as you look at a cannabis business and what makes, what separates us and the Canadian companies from some of the competitors out there is just the ability to deploy all that technology into a full operation. And really, it's a very sophisticated enterprise.
You have tours, too.
And we do tours.
Yeah.
The Smiths Falls Visitor Center has now had over 30,000 people visit in the last year.
It's extraordinary. I'm fascinated when I go there. And you're not allowed to touch anything, eat anything, do anything.
Right?
Yeah, but it's really an interesting operation. Really.
Let me ask you about your relationship with technology because you're so versatile in so many spaces. I mean, you've disrupted so many different spaces. But you said something that really resonates with me. You said when you're through changing, you're through. You also have talked about learning. I mean, learning about Compton from Snoop Dogg while you teach him about cooking, right?
Well, learning something new every day is very important to me. It's the only way you can keep your mind agile and grow. And I've always been interested in technology. It helped that I had a boyfriend who did Word and Excel. He was the developer of those 2 programs. So I got to know all the guys. I got to know Bill and Steve and Charles and so they're on first name basis. I'm not bragging. I'm just telling a fact. And they are all nerds. My boyfriend's T-shirt read Eminence Green. He's geek. Eminence Green geek. He was a geek, but he still is. But I started to learn a lot about what was happening in the world. The world changed drastically in 1982 for me because I bought my first IBM computer. It took me a long time to really learn how to use that computer. It was a desktop. They sold you a huge desk. And you had to go into the IBM store on 57th Street in New York, and you have to buy all this stuff and this ugly tower that sat on the floor. Do you remember those?
Yeah,
You're probably too young.
No, I know.
So I was an early adopter, and since then, you know, every single evolution of the computer, every single evolution of programming, software, all became very interesting to me. Our magazine, I'm very proud to say, our magazine, Martha Stewart Living, which was established 30 years ago in 1990, was the first magazine, illustrated magazine, to be completely designed on the Mac. So we were very proud of that. We got rid of all the other, you know, cut and paste kind of stuff that had to be done elsewhere. And so since then, we've been using technology for not only design, but also for communication, for social media, of course. Finding a new social media platform really has changed business a lot. We've seen I knew Jeff Bezos when he first started. And we all love the idea, you know, Amazon, oh my gosh. And look what's happened. It's extraordinary what's happened. And but whoever foresaw it, those days we didn't see that he was going to destroy traditional retail, which he is doing very nicely, by the way. So it's interesting to watch and to partake and to experiment with all of this. And Canopy is just another example of using what they're learning in technology and in medicine as alternatives. It's all about alternative choices too.
Well, why did you pick a Canadian company, though, to partner with? Why Canada?
Well, I came very highly recommended. You know, Snoop and his business partner, who is a very smart young Korean entrepreneur, introduced me, and it was the largest company. It seemed to be doing really good research, and that's why.
Let me ask you, Mark. For people who might not see an obvious relationship between their cannabis business and technology, or technology and cannabis, what do you say to people?
Yeah, I think the fact that we're sitting up here with Martha talking about CBD and cannabis shows the breadth of the opportunity in cannabis. It really, whether you're talking about pharmaceutical, whether you're talking about, you know, beverage alcohol, you know, anything you can look at, and even if you now look at hemp, right, you can build cars out of hemp, right? I mean, so you can extend the cannabis opportunity into basically anything. And it's not to say they're all going to work, obviously. Some will go by the wayside, but you know, I think it's just reaching out, and this is, you know, part of, you know, we get calls thankfully from people like Martha and people like Ted or Snoop, but you know, we get inbounds every single day from all kinds of people with all kinds of ideas, and we look at each of them because that's how we stay ahead, by making sure that we seize the opportunity.
Have either of you sensed any resistance or stigma working in this space?
I've experienced none, other than one bank saying, you know, you can't bank here if you are an owner of a stock or in the area, and I wasn't at the time. So it's interesting to see, but they have their rules and regulations. So everybody's still waiting for governmental approval and the laws to change. I'll wait. I have patience.
Yeah, it's been a long journey, right? 6 years ago when we started, you know, we went knocking on town door after town door, and you know, a lot of them turned us away, and ultimately we ended up in the town of Smiths Falls, where we bought the old Hershey chocolate factory, and you know, Hershey had left and you know, left the town economically depressed. And you know, we've now built a footprint and a staff level that well exceeds what Hershey did. But you know, it's been this long journey where we've always tried to be building credibility. So you know, the first bank we had was RBC, and that was great because it added credibility. And then they found out what we did, and they dropped us, right? And then we were with credit unions for years and years, and we're just seeing the banks start to come back into the fold and be willing to deal with us. But you know, for 5 years, you know, we've been traded on public stock exchanges. We've been you know, conducting only federally legal activity, and it's still a journey to get a bank to work with you. So I mean, there is stigma. It's starting to drop down, and you know, certainly I think when we see more progress in the United States, more clarity out of the United States, I think that will all very quickly start to fade away.
To both of you, and I'll start with you, Martha, do you think there's ever going to be a day, I know we have it legal in some states, but do you think it's going to be legal in the States? Do you think it's going to be the same as we see in Canada? Do you ever see a day like that?
I hope so. I hope so. There's, and I've experienced, there's been a tremendous stigma attached to it in terms of crime and dealing, and I think that will all go away. It's cannabis.
Do you see that, Mark?
Yeah, I think it's going to look something like a states' rights situation where, what I gather about Americans is, actually, if you look at the polls, there's, it's, in the 90s in terms of, medical cannabis approval, and I think it's in the 60s in terms of recreational, but they also, I think, love states' rights. They love that states can do what they want to do. So, I think we're seeing there's no longer this divide between Republicans and Democrats. Trump has said he would sign a states' rights bill. And we're now into the details, which are important, things like restorative justice. How are we dealing with people who went to jail for cannabis, and now we're going to say cannabis is okay, right? So a lot of details to work through, but the fact that we're even at that level of details in the United States now, I think, is a very, very positive sign.
Yeah, it's certainly a complex issue that we're still all navigating. How have you found the rollout has been here in Canada? I mean, we've had a rocky road here in Ontario.
Yeah, there's pros and cons of what's happened, certainly. If you stop for a second, though, we are less than 1 year into legalization, right? So if you think of all that we've actually accomplished, this is a big accomplishment for Canada. It was a big move by the government. Provinces rallied, private companies rallied, and there is a system, and I think we should be really proud. But we need more stores. There's no, how many stores are in Toronto today versus, I think, Calgary probably has multiples more stores than all of Ontario, right? So there does need to be movement so people have access, and that, improves the system. But, if we step back, it's been an incredible accomplishment that we should all be pretty proud of.
Let's talk about something fun. How about food? Martha, you've written 95 cookbooks. Do you see yourself ever writing a cannabis cookbook? And if so, any titles that come to mind?
I think that's a possibility. I'm not ready to do it yet, but that might be a possibility. One of our writers did write a really good book. I'm working on a blurb for her book right now, and it's called "Growing Weed in the Garden." And Joanna Silver, her name is, and I think it's sort of a no-fuss approach to gardening with hemp and ultimately cannabis. So, and it's a beautiful book. It's highly illustrated, beautiful photographs, and it's giving everybody the opportunity to grow outdoors what they will ultimately use somehow. So, but it's nice. It's a nice book.
You're known for your adaptability and your versatility. Is there a space that you still hope to conquer?
Oh, there's many, many areas of living. The reason I named my business Living is because, to me, it's limitless. There's so many things to do. There's indoors and outdoors. And I have yet to write a book about my farms and what we do on the farms, about ecology. I practice very high standards of environmental behavior, but I would like to write a book about it too. So there's a lot of things that I'm still working on.
What can we expect in the next year from your partnership?
Well, we're working on some, they're not exactly secret, but they're not to be talked about quite yet, right? Fair. Yeah, we're working on.
Space you can share.
We're working on.
Intimate
We're working on some really good projects right now that I hope, and we've done some good development, and I hope that it all is approved and ready to go by the middle of next year.
Oh, that's really exciting. Yeah. Mark, where do you think the cannabis industry at large is headed?
So
that is
a broad question, but we are seeing. What happened in Canada is sending ripples around the world. We're seeing medical cannabis opportunities. There's a system in Germany. There's a system in Australia. The war on drugs is coming to an end, and it's still a journey. There's still stigma to work through. But we're seeing a global shift in the way people view cannabis, in the way they recognize the medical values, in the way they recognize the recreational side ain't so bad. And speaking for Canopy and speaking for all of the Canadian companies who have a lead, this is a major opportunity for Ontario, for Canada, to have the global cannabis companies as an entire sector emerges, and we have to make sure that we seize that opportunity.
You have in the audience a lot of people who want to disrupt in their fields like you have, a lot of people from startups that are really looking for some advice from two people who have done so well. So what advice would you give to our crowd today if they want to really, make a difference?
Well, when I started my magazine, Martha Stewart Living, it was a magazine devoted to how-to lifestyle. It didn't, with beautiful imagery, beautiful graphics, and it didn't exist in the United States at the time. In fact, in 1990, when I started it, many magazines were closing. It was not a vibrant industry at the time, and more magazines were closing than starting. So I was somewhat of a disruption, and I just thought, maybe the first issue won't have a lot of advertisers, but in a year, I think this will be a very popular magazine. And I took a gamble, and I was right. It worked out very nicely. And we still have a very vibrant subscriber list. We have a lot of readers. We have probably 15 million readers a month of just the magazine, not counting the books and the TV viewers. And it's been amazing. So I suggest that if you think you have a really good idea, to pursue it and to really clarify it and to pick and choose which roads you're really going to go down, because you can be too widespread to start. Keep it narrow, keep it tight, keep it really effective, and believe in it. If you believe in it, I think you can make it happen.
What about in terms of branding? Because you've done things in a way that a lot of people, I think, have not. So what do you want to tell people about a brand and being able to change?
In 1990, it was so easy to publicize and to promote because there was no internet, there was no social media where the influencers weren't around. You did it yourself, but there were newspapers that were widely read. And to get a story, you just worked on things like that, and it was free. I didn't spend $1 on advertising until maybe 2010.
Really?
Yes, it was amazing how much you could do with no advertising dollars. Now, of course, it's very important to be able to have a budget for advertising, for promotion, expensive PR people. They want a cut of the business now. I taught my own publicist how to do all that, how to take a cut of your business, and to do very effective public relations. So it's more complicated now than it's ever been. It's not easier, even though you think, oh my gosh, the Kardashians, look what they've built in such a short period of time. They've been at it for 10, 12 years now.
Right, you don't see, right.
Yeah, you don't see how hard they have worked and how many, whatever they do to themselves, they've done. And I'm jealous. That's not a snide remark. I'm totally jealous. I would love to look like those girls.
They're the same crowd as the Emmy Awards here.
But they were, it's just incredible. But they have used technology in the very, very best way. And that's what we have at our fingertips now. We have the ability to become well-known very quickly if we have a good product, or an interesting product, or a crazy good product. It's all of that.
Or a new, unique product,
yes.
Right? Yeah, so let's talk about that, Mark. What advice do you give to people out there in the audience who want to do what you do and who want to disrupt?
Yeah, I think it's to believe that everything can be done. And I'm not even talking about this like big picture, follow your dreams. I'm talking about, at that getting it done level, right? Because ultimately building a company is a series of small decisions that get made. And every time you get in a room, if it's 5 people in a room trying to decide something, you can't start with, here are all the restrictions, therefore let's do this. It is, what is it we want to do? And someone will say, oh, it can't be done, but you just have to stay on it. It sounds cliche, but 95% of the time it actually gets done. And then for the 5% where it doesn't, you end up back where I started, which is, okay, here are the restrictions, and we got there. So it is every single small decision, not feeling you're restricted, and knowing you can, if you push for it, it actually usually gets done somehow.
Okay. This year's theme at Elevate is Moonshot, as we celebrate the 50th anniversary of the lunar landing. So with that in mind, in the spirit of thinking without limits, what are each of your Moonshot goals, Martha?
Well, mine, I guess, is to become the best teacher in the world on the subject of good living. And I'm working with Mount Sinai Hospital on a geriatric program for living the good long life, trying to work very hard in developing programs that are going to be used all over the United States, at least, hopefully in Canada too, to provide the best care and the best ideas for living your life as well as you can for as long as you live, because pretty soon we're all going to be, there's more, 50% of America is going to be over 65 in 10 years. That's scary. And who's going to take care of them? Who's going to educate them in the way of living? So, and where's the caregivers going to come from? It's a big, big subject matter. So I'm working on that as my philanthropic arm of my business. But in addition to that, I just want to make sure that people have the opportunity to know how things are done so that they can do them themselves. I think people want to learn, and I love being a teacher. So, and the more educational TV programs I can do, even with Snoop, because they're enjoyable and people learn from that. Today there was an article in the paper, I had everybody on the plane coming up here learning how to boil the perfect egg. And it sounds like so silly and so mundane, but you know what, it makes life better if you know how to
And it gives you
do
joy
the
when you do
perfect
that.
egg, right?
I'm
Yes.
a better person for having heard that story, that is for sure.
Is there anything that you've learned in this journey then, in that same vein with partnering with Canopy? Is there anything that you've learned?
Well, I'm learning every single day from this. Every single day. Will it make people feel better? Will it eliminate some of the intense, more harsher drug intake?
Especially talk about the aging population.
Of
right?
course, and it's working very well. Our center prescribes certain CBD products for the older patients, and it seems to be helping them. So if this is going to work, and it's all related, I think it will be a more beneficial, very beneficial program for me to be involved with.
Interesting. Mark, your Moonshot goal.
Yeah, I'll aim to be less ambitious than Martha. I merely want to see us create the greatest cannabis company in the world, change people's lives by giving them a better medicine or a better recreational experience, and ultimately attend a taping of the Martha and Snoop show where we see our fine products showcased and consumed on the show.
Okay, I promise.
We can do it.
Before we wrap up, last question. Any words about Elevate? I mean, Martha, you're experiencing this tech festival that we have here in the city. Anything?
I think this kind of festival, celebrating advancements in technology, advancements in learning, just the best kind of gathering. And I love to attend sessions like this because I learn so much, and it's a really beneficial thing.
Excellent.
Here. Yeah, you can feel the energy. It's fantastic.
All right. Well, thank you both. This was
Thank
an
you.
enlightening conversation. We learned a lot.
Thank you.
And we look forward to seeing what you bring within the next year and in the future. Thank you. And thank you all for sticking around.
Thank you. Bye.
Another big round of applause. Farah, Nasser, Martha Stewart, Mark from Canopy.
Thanks for being with us today on Janette's TV. I'm your host, Janette Burke, signing off. Please remember to like, comment, and share all our posts with your family and friends. You will find us on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, Pinterest, Vimeo, YouTube, you name it, we're there. Hashtag Janette's TV. And until next time, continue to be fabulous.